the basics series, our summer school, as Alan so fondly named it. And today it will be an all Chiltern event, as our presenter today is also a member of the Chiltern Branch, Lee Owens. He would be doing the presentation. As you all would have seen in the invitation that went out, it is manual handling, and Lee will be taking you through his experience with manual handling. The session is being recorded, and it will be posted on LinkedIn and YouTube for those of us who either miss part of it or have to drop off before. We encourage questions, and we would have a period at the end to address those questions as much as we could. So please feel free to post those questions. Preface it by the letter Q as in Quebec, so that we know it's a question as opposed to a comment. And I would be ably assisted by Alan and Melissa and Tony in the background to group those questions together so that we could address them at the end. So without any further delay, I would pass the microphone over to Lee Owens, who will introduce himself and give an overview of the presentation. So over to you, Lee.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Lee Owens, as Kurt said. Thank you for the introduction. Today we're going to talk about manual handling as part of the Chiltern Summer School. It's an introduction to the company. It's an introduction to manual handling and the basics of it, and it's also an introduction to what we do within the business and how we manage manual handling. I'm going to share, so hopefully this will be out to everybody quite soon. I hope you can all see that. Yeah,
yes,
everything good. Fantastic. So Chiltern IOSH Summer School, back to basics, the 6-pack, and today we're doing manual handling. So my name, as we've already said, Lee Owens. I'm Tech IOSH, Deputy Engineering Manager at Wheat Printing Services at Watford. Some of you will probably know us better as Trinity Mirror. We are the producers of the Daily Mirror, amongst other national titles. As well as Deputy Engineering Manager, my other duties include site health and safety. I also sit on group health and safety with some of the people that have joined us today. We have a fantastic team. We work together as a cooperative. It works very well. I also do the site environmental management and also stores and procurement. And for my sins, I also look after security. So my day's quite busy. We get through quite a few bits and pieces, and it's never a slow day. The time always flies by. So a brief introduction to Reach Printing Services and who we are. We're a national newspaper producer. We're the largest print manufacturers in the UK at this moment. We produce national and regional newspapers. Not really known to people, but we also produce the New York Times that go out around the hotels around the UK. So we produce a lot of foreign national newspapers that are brought into the UK. You may imagine they arrive on a plane every morning, but they don't. They're produced here in sunny Watford. Our major titles include the Daily Mirror, Daily Express and Daily Star, as well as a host of regional newspapers across the length and breadth of the UK. And you can see a few of them on the right-hand side. We obviously have digital content on all formats, and we also produce the OK magazine as well. One of the things we're very proud about, we do some specialised newspapers, and one of them is First News. There is a reason for the introduction into this. It's an award-winning newspaper for children. It can be read in schools or at home. It's got a coverage of 2.2 million, which is great. It's aimed at 7 and 14-year-olds, and it includes world, UK news and issues relevant to children, entertainment, music, sport and puzzles. There's a short video of its production coming up, and it will give you a basic introduction to what we do. Oddly enough, the first screenshot that you see on a manual handling point of view, we are taking the bungles from the press and getting them ready for distribution. You can see that we have the electric pallet truck in place. Everything's done at the correct height. There is no bending. We do this where we can, and we use every available opportunity of mechanical and electrical intervention where we can. Hopefully the video will run. It's all shot by phone, so please excuse me. So, oops, very quick. Breach printing services, health and safety. We're very proud of our health and safety teams, as we've already mentioned. We have teams on both sides of the business, which is manufacturing and publishing. Manufacturing, we're out there producing the newspapers, and publishing is all our digital content that you see going out, advertising. In 2021, we won our 17th consecutive ROSPA Order of Distinction. It was a gold award. We're very proud of this, especially this last year when we've been in unprecedented times with COVID, and we've kept everybody safe. We've had very, very little disruption to production, and it has been unprecedented times, as we've said. So the reason we're here, manual handling procedures, and we follow tile, and we are going to produce on this particular, we're going to talk about this particular protocol within the business. Manual handling statistics, it's very interesting that there is no legal maximum weight for manual handling in the workplace. This is because any weight can injure if not handled correctly, depending on the load and the physicality of the person who's handling it. These issues are covered over the next few slides, but we have a few statistics first. Hopefully this will work for anybody that will be interested, and as a starting point, we can jump onto the HSE. We have the Manual Handling Operations Regulations of 1992, and it's a great introduction to how you may want to start looking into manual handling. Hopefully we'll come back to the main screen. So work-related musculoskeletal disorders from the Health and HSE, 480,000 workers suffering from work-related musculoskeletal disorders in 1920, 152,000 workers from a new case of work-related musculoskeletal disorder in 1920, and we lost 8.9 million working days. We can see that surprisingly, the majority of the injuries are in the upper body, the upper limbs and neck, the next obviously the back, and 19% is down in the lower limbs. And you can see the actual figures of the people that have been injured. With regard to injury, agriculture, forestry and fishing come out at the top, and there was a little snippet on one of the news channels that I saw last night that was talking about the agricultural industry and how they were beginning to bring health and safety and risk assessment more into the business to stop injury, and they were looking to progress this over the coming years, which was nice to see. We've followed by construction, human health and social work, and then we have an average of the industries below. What is interesting, 2001 through to 2020, we are seeing a gradual decline in the amount of people that are being injured by manual handling, which can only be good to see. We have quite a good record within the business. We do quite well. I think we've had one maybe in the 6 years that I've been doing health and safety in the business. So on to task. We have the type of manual handling required, whether it be pushing, pulling, lifting or carrying. You need to think of how often are you going to repeat the task, how much twisting or bending is involved. Always assess how carrying out the task can affect the health and safety of the individual. When assessing the task, always consider the physical movements required, such as any excessive, sudden or repetitive movements, the distances involved in moving, the lifting of the load, the amount or the degree of physical effort required to lift the load, the pace of work, giving sufficient recovery times, and how the amount of physical lifting can be reduced. So we have a practical example from our stoneman George. As I said before, we did have a blooper of George, but it was, yeah, he doesn't hide his feelings. As you can see, he's dropping the load, he's keeping his back straight. He keeps the product at waist height, and down it goes. We also need to look at the individual, considering the person who will be carrying out the manual handling activity. We need to think about how strong they are, how fit and able they are they capable of handling the load alone, and do they need assistance? When assessing the individual, always consider the length of the level of physical strength and the skills required by the individual. Do they have the relevant training? Do they have the experience? We also need to have in there, have they read the risk assessment, or are they aware of the Toolbox Talks that we have on site? Does the individual have any health-related impairments or disabilities? And are there any medical histories related to any back pain or muscular injury that they may have? What information do they require to complete this task safely? Where the individual is concerned, we can try and take this out of the equation by bringing the load to the individual and decreasing the scope of handling. We use lots of different processes on site to produce our product, and we always try to bring the equipment to the actual product. This video shows inserts being loaded from the pallets into a winding machine, and they're going into the hopper. Just take the sound out. You can see that we're already palletized. We've got an electric loader sat underneath it, and we've brought it as close as we can to the machinery, and we've brought it to the correct height for the waist of the individuals using it. Whilst in this instance, the load may be relatively small, the repetitiveness helps us to get this across. My editing skills aren't very good, I'm afraid, so this is a little lengthy one. Not too bad, I hope. So you can see that we've got an electric pallet loader. It's not a pump truck. It lifts off an electric motor, and we can always keep the product on the different bungle heights and sizes at the correct height to load. You'll see the girls taking across the product in a minute, and we're not moving it very far. We get it as close to the machinery as we can. Load, and understanding what is being handled or moved. The load should be properly assessed to see if it's dangerous or bulky. We need to examine if the load has an indication of its weight, so we know what we are lifting. What it contains, is it secure? Will it move around on us? Does it have handles? If handles are in place, is the webbing or strapping intact? Is it correctly secured? We need to examine how the weight is distributed or secured within the containment. Is the load likely to move during the handling? And if so, what are the implications of it moving? You can see from the diagram across, and I'm sure you've all seen it, the actual weight and the load depends on the height of it. We try to keep everything where we can around our midriff. That's where we can take the largest weight. Yeah, it's quite self-explanatory as to what we need and where we need it. When assessing the load, we should always consider the load contents. Is it hazardous? Is it chemical? Is it unsteady, or is it secure? What is the weight of the load? Is it suitable to lift at height, at the height it's positioned? And what are the challenges of moving the load? Where there are sharp edges, or are there any sharp edges, or are there any unsecured contents inside? And does it impact on visibility or movement as we're beginning to move the load? Again, with the help of George, we have another short video. So George is assessing the weight, making sure with no sharp edges. He's determined it's too heavy. He's called an assistant across. She's going to make sure she's happy with the load. And the guys are going to carry the load up between them. And they're going to place the load on the bench where they can work with it. The environment, considering your route, elevation changes, steps or ramps, and lighting. This is all important when you're going to be moving the load around your building. This involves walking your route, assessing for trip hazards, making sure with nothing in the way, and making sure the light, shutter door switches and everything that we need to use during the movement are all operable and all in good condition. It's vital that you plan your entire route so that you can navigate safely through the environment when moving your load. Again, when assessing the environment, you should always consider the state of the ground. Slippery, uneven, are there any inclines? Do we have any slopes, steps? How much lighting is there? Could it impact on visibility? Also check the external factors. If you're moving from building to building, we need to look out for weather, possible traffic, forklifts. We need to be aware of our environment completely. We need to know where and how the loads are stored, how easy they are to pick up, and how easy we are to get to the delivery points and the height at which we'll be delivering. Again, we have George. He's got a load. He's just going to make sure that his path is clear so we can take it outside to stores to the guy who's waiting. We don't usually have people hindering the pathways, but for this purpose. And he's quite happy with his route out of the building, and he's quite happy to give the load across. So, correct lifting technique, things you need to think about when you're lifting. First of all, think about the lift. What have you got in front of you? How are you going to lift it? What are you going to do with it? Position yourself correctly for the lift. Bend your knees, keep your back straight at all times. Adopt a good stable position. Ensure you've got a good hold. Ensure if you are holding handles that all the handles are secure and in place and are not going to move on you. Keep the load close to your waist at all times. Do not bend your back whilst lifting. Do not twist when you lift, or please try to avoid it as much as you can. Always look ahead. Most importantly, know your limits of the load that you're about to lift and lower the load and then adjust your position. Again, with the help of George. We try to do this quite a bit in stores, so you will notice that George is going to move an item out of the way. Then where we have multiple items of any weight, we have them on rollers, so we can pull out and we can remove them quite easily. So we're not doing, again, continual bending exercises down to the position. So we bring everything out and then we move from one to the other. If it was particularly heavy at this moment in time, we could again bring an electric pallet truck in with a pallet and we could take the pallet up to the height of the product again, and then we reduce the actual movement of the person doing the lift. A look at common MSD issues. Damage to the invertebral disc. I know all about that one. I have a disc that bulges every now and again. It comes from a bent spine. I know the pain with the trapped nerves and sciatica, so I know how important it is to get the correct movements and have the correct help. We also get upper limb disorders with the arms and neck, lower limb disorders through the legs, obviously hernias, sprains, strains, muscle tears, hand and foot injuries when we're actually lifting the product through traps. So we have to be careful at all time. So Reach Printing Services, our commitment to manual handling. So we commit to the best in-house training that we can provide. This includes staff. So we have people who are picked individually on each site to be the trainers. We send them out on courses so that they are equipped to deliver training at all times to all of our staff. It helps us get through the 400 colleagues we have up and down the country. And of course, one of the tailored courses that we do is manual handling. Management and team leaders also present monthly Toolbox Talks. We have one on the right-hand side. It gives a scale of the problem. First of all, the most definite point is, can we avoid the manual handling at all costs? We also have the common causes of the accidents, the solutions to reduce the risks or the risk assessments that we're going to produce, the actual manual handling tasks and the suitable training that we've given and the lifting techniques that have been passed across. Do we have the suitable mechanical aids? We've been through that quite a lot. And we also look for good handling techniques. So we're standing reasonably close to we're bending the knees at the right time and keeping a straight back and getting a good secure grip on the load. We had a recent ISO audit, which we passed. And as we went into that, we found out we had in the region of 200 risk assessments, 190 manual handling assessments, and possibly the same amount of COSH assessments. We decided to try and do something about this because the logistics of delivering this to all our staff was becoming more and more difficult and quite a daunting affair. We decided recently, we moved across to the Google platform. We decided we'd try to be objective and look at the different solutions we could do within our risk assessments, which would include manual handling. We updated the risk assessments. We took them out to Google Sheets. It's very helpful at first. We did quite a lot of work, quite a lot of research. We wanted to increase the willingness of all our staff to be involved in the production of risk assessments. We decided to do this by creating the risk assessment in the format you see it. You will notice in certain areas that we have drop-down boxes. We'll come on to that a little bit later on. But basically what we're trying to do is create a data sheet that runs alongside the risk assessment that gives you the options that you may need for the control measures or for the actions that are taking place. This then, as it says, puts paid to laborious hours of typing. It increases the probability of getting the risk assessment completed. It's much more accessible and it maintains a good format at all time, and it becomes a lot easier to understand. So within the risk assessment, we included the manual handling risk assessment. This is where we are today. We've also got COSH, and you'll see below working at height is in there as well. We have the safe system of work at the bottom, but in today's case, we need to look at the manual handling. So we carry on with the tile. We have the task, individual, load and environment. At the top, we have the option of a drop-down box, and then this gives us as many options that we have to produce a risk assessment. Because of the database it's built from, we can continually add. If we have any new operations that we may be doing or any difficult operations, we can always add to the different formats of tile that we need to get in place. Once we've gone across from that, we can do exactly the same with the core control measures. So we can have a look and we can see, and the drop-down box comes in place, and the majority of the control measures that we have for manual handling are in place. We select one, we can put it in. There's no typing required. It's all quick, it's all sharp, it's all nice and easy, and it seems to work very well. We do the same for working at height, and we do the same for COSH underneath as well. The data sheet does all the hard work in the background. We just have to make the selections. As well as what we have with regard to our train the trainers and the actual physical training that we do on site, we also use IHASC as our main e-learning, and we put this out to everybody. We do this on a basis of 8 foundation courses that we like to roll out to all staff that aren't specialised, which is manual handling, slip, trips and falls, fire awareness, fire marshal, noise, environmental awareness, stress and drug and alcohol use. One of the most important things we like to get done around site is to get signage in place. We have it in the strategic areas of where we know the lifting's going to be, where we know we're going to be feeding the machines. We'd like to get some good information out there for everybody. It's always highlighted around the building where we can. And that's a brief introduction to manual handling, what we do at Reach Printing Services. This is my first time, so please excuse how we've been today, but hopefully it's kept your engagement. It's been a little bit enjoyable, so thank you for your time. I hope you've enjoyed this brief back to basic presentation. There will be an opportunity for short questions and answers coming right up, and thank you again for your time, and I guess we'll be back to Kurt now. I think you're on mute, Kurt.
Yeah. Thank you, Lee. I think it was an interesting presentation and discussion, and we encourage it to be a discussion. I know we have some questions in the queue, and we can tackle some of those questions now. The first question is, do you segregate materials in your stores, packages, on the shelves by weight?
Yes. So we do. We try to, where we can, we have the main shelving at the bottom. We keep all the, as strange as it sounds, we keep the majority of the weight down towards the bottom because we can then, as you saw before, we can have it loaded onto trolleys. We don't actually have to bend down continually, pull the items out or lift the items out. Everything's slidable, everything will come out easy. And then once we've done that, we're at a height of where we can bring the trolley to it and we can transfer the load across, be it 1 or 2 people. You can probably see throughout the video, we have lots and lots of devices for actually moving the gear around. You saw one package being moved, so we have different devices, sack trucks, etc., for all the different size of items we have in. As we move up, as we get up towards chest height, then we've got the drawers where the smaller items are, and we're just picking individual bits out. At the top, we try to keep it down to Corpexes, cabling, things that have no weight about them at all. So anything we're picking above our head should only be around 5 to 10 kg and not much more.
I particularly like the that sort of rolling shelf at the bottom of the racking that you were able to withdraw the packaging. That's a nice idea. I haven't seen that before.
It's quite effective, and the cost is very minimal. You're only buying a skate, and the skates are very cheap. It's plastic, it's on casters. There's no phenomenal cost, and it's a massive help to anybody who's working in the business. So sometimes you just got to be a little bit adaptive, look for different things, have different ideas, and you'll be amazed at the help you can give people.
Lee, the next question actually is coming from me.
Oh, thank you, Kurt. Please go easy.
Yeah, this might be a tricky one. You seem to have a pretty young workforce. How do you cater for the more senior folk who may have difficulty bending their knees to get into the proper posture?
What we try to do is manage the workforce the best we can. We can't always manage the workforce where we have to use different ages and different groups to live different ways. As you saw, we try to take the product at all times to the machinery in hand. We never look to be lifting anything more than a meter for sure. We'd always like to be within that. We'd always like to be at the correct height. We always want to be at waist height. And then that way, no matter what the age group is on site, we should have somebody who can move the equipment effectively and without causing any harm. We also want to try and take twisting out of the way. So this is why we have persons stood at either side of the machine. We can also involve rest times for people by having 2 people doing the manual handling as well. So one person can bring it across in a few bungles, they can take a rest, and we can take the other person to bring a few bungles across it all. So we like to think that age differentials within the business, it's so good, everybody can do the job that they need to do. I hope that answers the question, Kurt.
Yeah, you know, Alan gave me a little poke in the ribs and asked if I was
all the way to Trinidad.
Yeah, if I was speaking from
experience. He's got long arms.
But yes, I was speaking from experience, because as you get older, you find there's more difficulty bending your knees, you know, so you tend to take shortcuts and lifting, which isn't good.
We try to avoid that where we can, Kurt, with the risk assessments and toolbox talks. It is something we keep on top of. It is a monthly thing where we have continual toolbox talks going out, and we have people read them, sign them off, and make sure that they're understood and come back to us. So we're continually helping people, not as a reminder with the rules, but just to keep them up to date on what they should be doing within lifting and COSH or whatever it may be. There are continual little reminders going out.
We have a question from, and I hope I get this pronunciation correct, from Tim Eves. I don't know if Tim would like to ask this question, if he would like to unmute and ask this question. Or good question, I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah, it was a question about the IHASC training.
Yep.
I use the IHASC training as well, and I just wondered how often you did the refresher training?
It depends on which training we're given. Majority go out every 12 months.
Every 12 months?
Yeah, and we get a reminder on the 12-month renewal.
Yeah, okay.
We have some, oddly enough, you may do it yourself, we have some that are slightly more diverse. So CDM, CDM may go out, it will go out once a year, but it could be a little less frequent.
Okay, thank you.
No worries.
Tim, our next question, I would like to ask the Honorable Alan to ask the question himself. Alan?
Yeah, thanks, Kurt. I was just trying to work out what I'd asked. I think you've partly answered this, but from a practical point of view, how do you present your toolbox talks? Obviously, we saw the verbiage, the writing, the printed form, but do you use tablets or other ways to present it, the information in different?
The original way for the toolbox talk that you just saw, Alan, is to send it out to the line managers. The line managers will then take up to 6 colleagues, and they will read the toolbox talk out, and then they will do a questions and answer after. when we talked about the Google platform and what we're trying to do with the Google platform, we are in the infancy of trying to get some Toolbox Talks out via the Google that we can email to everybody. So we can go to the entire Watford users site, as we are on site, and we can get it out to everybody. And then from the back of that, we've done a form. So we attach the form to the Toolbox Talk or to the risk assessment. That is electronically sent to the individual. They read it. The good thing about this is then that form allows us to have a question and answer to everybody in the building. So they can then come back to us, and we then, within the form, puts an Excel spreadsheet, and the spreadsheet sits, and everybody who answers, everybody who gives us a question about that particular Toolbox Talk or risk assessment, we can either answer that question, include it, or update it, and that way we can continually learn as we go along.
And how about monitoring its impact? Is that carried out by direct supervisors, line managers?
It is, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, where possible.
Yeah. Thank you.
No worries.
Lee, this is not a question. It's a contribution, I guess, to it, particularly for non-routine lifting and manual handling, where we like to do a reconnaissance of our route and where we're going to lay down that load before we pick it up.
Yep.
You know, it's important, particularly for non-routine manual handling.
Absolutely. Question
Do you
being?
have a?
Sorry.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm
ahead,
sorry. You're
ahead,
contributing, not questioning. Sorry, I apologize.
Yeah, it was just I don't know if you had any comment on it, but it's something particularly for non-routine where you know you have to pick up a load. You want to ensure that your route to where you're going to lay down that load is free of any obstacles and hazards, and you could lay it down safely. So it's not just about picking it up from where it's at, but where you're going to lay it down as well.
Okay, so I can give you a very quick example. We've just brought an AccuSign cabinet into the building, which is for the press. It's for the harmonics on the press. The cabinet is probably the best part of 2 meters by a meter by a meter. The weight of the transformers, the current transformers inside, is considerable. We're very lucky that we have independent lifts onto the press, but we have to take that up in the lift. We have to then get it onto the press deck, and then to get it onto the actual floor where it's going to sit, we have a very small bridge moving that actual cabinet across and getting it in place. We brought scaffolders in. We readjusted all the particular hand railing around that press. We made the correct ramps that we could get in place. Once we've done that, we risk assessed it all. We can be moving things continually up and down 2 and 3 floors at any moment in time, especially on the press. So everything's risk assessed. We bring the correct contractor in to give us advice on how we actually want to adapt the scope of travel, the environment that we're going to be moving through. And we take every precaution that we can do to get that in place. And it is, you'll see that Luke James is on the call with me today. Luke's our health and safety manager here. So we have a team of people from different aspects. I'm an engineer. Luke has come from a different side of the business. We have a building services engineer that's also health and safety. And between the three of us, we can take a good objective look at what we're trying to move and how we're trying to move it. And it really is a team effort to get something into the building.
Yeah, it's
and the most important,
it's using the skills and expertise that you've got there, isn't it, really? To get all of that knowledge together to make it as safe as possible.
Yep, absolutely. Does that answer the question, Kurt?
Yes.
Okay.
We have another question from Jeremy. Jeremy, would you like to ask the question? Would you like to unmute and ask the question? If not, I can go ahead. Jeremy has asked, how do you deal with difficult people? He is relating that he has a guy with leg problems who point blank refuses to follow the lifting guidance. Example, straight back and use the legs. We all have some difficult people to deal with.
We do have some difficulties, you're quite right. I am going to offer this across to Luke James. Luke is probably better placed to answer this question, as Luke deals more with the occupational health side of the business and what we would do in this particular instance. I'm sorry to put this across to you, Luke, but if you wouldn't mind having a moment.
That's not a problem at all, Lee. So with this one, you obviously have to look at the individual. Obviously, that person has got a leg problem or a leg issue. My take on it would be we would push it on to occupational health. So we have a partner in occupational health who we would go to and say we have a specific individual who has a leg issue. These are some questions we'd like yourself to ask to see what restrictions are going to be in place for that individual when it comes to lifting. So it may not be, leg problems. It might be a back issue. It might be that they've just come back from an operation, so we might have to limit certain weights that they carry. So really, it goes very much back to tile, where we look at the individual and those restrictions that we might have to put in place for that individual. Similar to what Kurt said, when individuals are getting older, if they're not suited to that task, maybe we use that individual elsewhere to do another certain task, or we get in a mechanical aid, as Lee said.
It's fair to say that during this process that we've talked about, we try to meet every criteria that we can do. We can do a telephone call to the guy whose legs are where he's having trouble. We can do telephone assistance. We can do on-site assistance. We try to give every available opportunity to help the gentleman in question to be able to do his job where he can. We can have phased return to works if he's just come back from an illness or from an operation. So we try to do everything within the business we can to help the individual where we can. I hope that answers the question, Jeremy.
Yeah, I guess he probably was bordering on some industrial relations sort of issues with employees, workers that don't want to comply with what is the best practice and what are the guidance. And I think we will always have those sort of challenges. There's a question from Daniel Foster that I seem to have missed. I don't know if Daniel could unmute and ask his question. Jeremy, I saw your note. No biggie. We just encouraging the members to ask their questions so that we could have a discussion rather than a sort of training session. Is Daniel able to unmute and ask this question? Alan, I'm not seeing Daniel's question, so I don't know if you're seeing it and you could ask it on his behalf.
Hi, Alan is muted. Hi, Melissa here. I'll come in. Yeah, I think Daniel had made a point that he said the work area seems confined. Has that presented issues? I think that was coming out from the videos you showed.
It doesn't, because we tend to have all the equipment in place that deal with those confined areas. If you were to be here, we're over 4 floors. We have a hell of a lot of equipment in there. We put out about 2.5 million newspapers a day. Again, to go on figures, the stores is quite a large stores. We can have anywhere up to £1 million or £1.5 million worth of equipment in there at any moment in time. So we tend to adapt to all the areas that we have. It is quite confined in areas, but as you can see with the palletising, we can always get into those areas to complete the works where we need to. It's never really caused us a problem. What may be more of a problem is with manual handling, is where we do it from height. But when we do it from height, we have all the correct fastenings in the ceiling, so we can do the correct hoisting at the right time. We always survey the area. And look at how we can overcome the problems and the issues. We bring independent companies out to help us in these areas. So if it's confined spaces, we will bring somebody on site who's a specialist in confined spaces. We're never confined where we can't overcome our issues between us as a group of individuals, or we haven't found that yet.
I want to believe that Daniel was more referring to restricted workspace rather than a confined space as entering.
Well, again, with a restricted workspace, obviously the machinery can only be so close together. We can't get all the equipment on top of each other. Again, we have plenty of areas. You saw with the pallet coming in and the 2 people working either side of the actual equipment. We don't have too many confined workspaces. We are quite good. And where we do, we try to manage it well with the amount of people that can go in at any one moment in time.
Well, I think we are coming up on 45 minutes, just a little over 40 minutes. I would like to thank Lee for this presentation and for all of our colleagues that are tuned in to this meeting today. It's really about sharing our experiences and sharing our ideas. Alan, I see a hand. I'll come to you in a minute. Yeah, it's really, we're trying to encourage a discussion and share our experiences. None of us are saying that we do things perfectly, but the idea is to have that discussion and get ideas from each other. So we do appreciate all of the questions and comments that have been made, and we certainly do appreciate the time that Lee has taken and Luke to put this together for us. Before we wrap up, I know Alan wants to say something, so I'll put it over to Alan.
Thank you, Kurt. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, fine.
Yeah, sorry, I popped this one in just as you started to speak, Kurt. So a sort of a challenge in a way to you, Lee. For this meeting, we flagged up the presentation that was given to the IOSH Logistics and Retail Group meeting back in May, which I sat in on. It was by HSE Special Inspector Chris Quarry on the use of the HSE's Mac and RAP tools. So I just really wondered if that was something you'd looked at, not that video, but I mean the techniques that are available there to aid assessment. I think the principles are incorporated in what you're doing anyway, but I just wondered if you, or in fact, let's open it up. Anyone else that's been their go-to way to assess and solve their manual handling problems.
From my perspective personally, and from the perspective of some of the challenges we've had in the business, yeah, it would be my starting point. That's where I would go for guidance. That's where I would look. That's where I would read through. And it could be on a multitude of things that are going on. One particular instance really recently was our vanway, of where we had HGVs coming in and out, and the actual protection of the people around there. And that is the place where we will start to get the guidance. And then we will start to build our documentation around that guidance, and we would always take the advice that the HSE have available.
Yeah, and I think the only other comment I would make is, we've got an international audience as well, and it isn't only our own national regulators, as far as UK is concerned, HSE-NI and HSA in Ireland and all you other people out there have plenty of useful material around. So there's lots of help to simplify the problem, and I think you've certainly given us a good basis for that today. This is exactly what we needed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, certainly. I also would like to extend an invitation to any of the members that are on the call today, that if you would like to present something at one of our branch meetings, we encourage that.
We do.
You do not have to be an expert. But we could all learn from each other. And if you feel that you have something that you would like to present, please flag us and we will cater for it. I would like to pass over to Melissa, our chair, to see if she would like to say any closing words.
Thanks, Kurt. As a fellow Trini, you read my mind, because I was just going to raise my hand and just to say thanks again. I know you've expressed thanks, but on behalf of the committee, for Lee raising his hand to lead this session, and for Alan, who came up with the idea of the summer school series, which is a first of its kind, I think, for the IOSH meetings. It's one of the benefits of us going virtual. And we reflected as a committee that, we've done a great job over the last year and a half on different topics, but this was a really good opportunity to go back to basics and cover those about 8 different topics. So as I posted in the chat, this is week 2. Next week would be on working at heights, and the following week would be on low loss, so lifting operations. And we have a couple more in August. So some really good topics to refresh on, the base principles of health and safety aspects. So thanks again, Lee. Great job in presenting and sharing what's done at your company. And thanks, Luke, for supporting that. And thanks again, Alan and Kurt. And as Kurt has mentioned, we're also starting to think about beyond the end of the summer when we start to freeze again. And we have our monthly meetings. We're always open for presenters and different topics where we've been talking about things like maybe ISO 45003. That's come out. So we're thinking of a session on that. Sustainability is another topic, etc. So if anyone has any ideas of things you would like to hear from a branch perspective, reach out to us on our different forum. And the recording will be available on LinkedIn in a couple of days. And finally, survey feedback will be coming out. We do look at those to get any feedback. So, rate the event. I'm sure it will rate high, but also put comments on, because we do read those and we consider those in our committee meetings. So good. I know I went on a bit longer, but I just kind of very excited by everything that we're doing as a committee and as a branch. So good. I think with that, really great session. Excellent job, Lee. Excellent job, Kurt. Have a great rest of the week.
Paul. I don't want to forget
yes.
Paul. Thank you, Paul. And